So next on this mini-series, if you want to call it, of what positions do the Giants need next year, we'll go over right tackle. So last video, we did the center position. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. This time, right tackle. So right tackle for us last year was manned down by Mike Remmers, who surprisingly, was active for 14 games. Did have an injury history, so it was a little concerning. Only missed 2 games, which was fine. And Mike Remmers played pretty well. Played a lot better than I thought he would, honestly. And he wasn't excellent, but he wasn't bad either. I think he had like one bad game, which was like the Week 7 game against the Cardinals or something like that. But outside of that, I was pretty happy with Mike Remmers, honestly. Coming off back surgery, the expectations were very low. It was a 1-year deal for him, like $2.5, $3 million. Came in, had a nice year for the Giants, started 14 games. Of course, Nick Gates backed him up. He had a great year as well. Both were cheap options and played above what their salary was giving them. So, they do have options in-house, and right now Mike Remmers is a free agent, so we'll go over him as well. They do have Nick Gates still under contract for next year, so that's an option, but they can also upgrade as well. So we'll go over some guys in the draft, some guys in free agency. Like I said last video, it's going to be 3 or 4 options. There's definitely more than only 3 or 4. There's other guys in free agency. There's other guys in the draft, obviously. This draft is very deep with tackles, so this is not the only options we have, but these are the most likely scenarios in my mind. So let's get into it, and hopefully you guys enjoy. Option number 1 is an in-house move. You just move Nate Solder from the left side to the right side. And of course, this all predicates on if they draft a left tackle, Mekhi Becton. I like Andrew Thomas a lot, Josh Jones from Houston. There's people out there that could play left tackle in this draft. As I said before, this is a very deep class for tackles. So this, could be a possibility, obviously. They could sign an Anthony Costanzo type of guy who also plays left tackle. I don't think he leaves the Colts, but it's possible. And maybe you put Nate Solder at right tackle in that scenario. So Solder, he has been playing very poorly recently. Had a decent half a year in 2018. Was not really good at all in 2019. Had an injured foot or ankle at one point. So I'll give him a half a pass on that one, but still, you're making a lot of money, so you should be playing better than that. PFF gave him a 64.7 in 2019, which is average. I thought it'd be worse than that, honestly. The Giants would have to eat $13 million in dead cap space if he was cut, so I personally believe Nate Solder will be here next year. It depends what position they want to put him at. And this would only happen if a better left tackle was brought in. So if the Giants drafted a tackle in the 3rd round, like a left tackle, they're not going to be like, hey, Nate Solder, move the right tackle for this kid. It's probably not going to happen. But if they bring in somebody like Andrew Thomas or Anthony Costanzo, who's more established and just a better player at this point, they'd probably try Nate Solder at right tackle, honestly, because there's no point in benching a guy who's making like $19 million next year. You might as well try and figure out if he can play on the other side. So Solder had some time at right tackle during his rookie year in New England, so I know that was back in 2011 or 2012, but still, he's done it before, so I'm sure he can learn it again if he needed to. And moving into the non-blind side of Daniel Jones would definitely be beneficial. So there were times last year where Nate Solder was beat. The opposing defensive end or outside linebacker would just strip the ball from Daniel Jones and it'd be a turnover. But hopefully, if we have a better left tackle next year, things would be a lot easier for Daniel Jones. At least if we put him at right tackle, Nate Solder, it wouldn't be as bad. Definitely has to play better himself, and I do think he'll be a little bit better next year, but you really can't rely on that. So if they move him to right tackle, hopefully he plays better. It really comes down to the contract, because if it wasn't for the dead cap space and all that kind of stuff, I would say just cut him. There's no point in bringing him back, but the guy's making too much money for next year, and you might as well try and salvage him in some way and just try to move him to right tackle and see if he plays better in 2020. So the next option would be just draft Jedrick Wills Jr. from Alabama. So he did play right tackle for them. He's 6'5", 320 pounds. In my opinion, should be drafted in the 8 to 20 range in this year's draft in the 1st round, obviously. Could play right tackle or left tackle, but honestly, he probably should just play right tackle because that's what he's used to. But it wouldn't surprise me if a team tried to make him a left tackle either. He definitely has the skills and whatnot to do so. He has all the tools to be a really good right tackle, has the size, the quickness, the strength, and the athleticism to do so. Seems like a safe pick in my mind. I thought last year Jonah Williams, in my mind, who also went to Alabama, was a safe pick. Of course, he missed the whole year with an injury, but that guy was like a really safe prospect in my mind. I expect him to have a good year for the Bengals in year 2. And Jedrick Wills kind of reminded me of him in a way, just had really good technique, and I think he'll be a safe pick as long as he's not injured. That's, of course, a big thing, but doesn't really have an injury history from what I know, at least, so that's a good thing. He could be a target for the Giants if they were to trade back. It would kind of annoy me if Gettleman took him number 4 overall and didn't even try to trade back, which I guess could happen with him, but, still, Wills would be a safe pick, and he would be a solid right tackle for a long time. But I would still try to trade back and get more assets, and then try and draft him like 7, 8, 9-ish or something around there, which is probably where he'll go. So hopefully they try and do that. And they could try to move Wills to left tackle and Solder to right tackle if the struggles continue. But I expect them, if in a scenario where the Giants drafted Wills, I think they would start Solder at left tackle, Wills at right tackle, and if Solder is just really, really bad, maybe they try to make a change and put Wills at left tackle and then put Nick Gates at right tackle if Solder's that bad. But I don't expect him to just be a left tackle out of the gates, no pun intended, but yeah, out of the gate if he's drafted here. So this pick would definitely help get the most out of Saquon Barkley. It's been one of my problems with the Barkley pick. They don't have an offensive line in front of him that's capable of maximizing his potential, but having a guy like Jedrick Wills, who's a pretty good run blocker, would definitely help. So hopefully they draft an offensive lineman. That's what I'm trying to get at here. And a solid right tackle like Wills can definitely help Daniel Jones' development. So if he locks down the right side, there was a couple moments last year, one in preseason, I think one in regular season, where a guy was just coming right at Daniel Jones. Wasn't even his blind side, his strong side, I guess you can call it. And he still fumbled the ball and didn't see the pressure coming. So, hopefully he has a good right tackle and left tackle next year. That's definitely what we want. And Jedrick Wills will be a safe pick in my mind. So this is definitely possible. I hope he's not taking it number 4 overall. I feel like that's not like a reach, but I feel like you can get him a bit later, and hopefully Gettleman tries to maneuver the draft the right way. And even if you miss out on him, there are other tackles, so it's not the end of the world. But if Wills is their guy and he really wants to take him at number 4, then fine, I can live with it, but he better be good. So as I said before, he'll be a fine player in the NFL. I think he's a pretty safe prospect as long as he's not injured, which could happen to anybody, but as long as he's healthy, should be a good right tackle, and I'd be pretty happy with that. Up next is a guy that a lot of Giants fans want this year. It's the right tackle for the Titans, Jack Conklin, 25 years old, unrestricted free agent, former 8th overall pick in the 2016 draft. Of course, Giants fans wanted him in that draft. We ended up with a Eli Apple as our pick, so that was not good. Missed 7 games in 2018 with an ACL injury. Played all 16 games in 2016, 17, and 19. So outside of the one unfortunate ACL tear, which happened in the playoffs, I believe, in 2018 against the Patriots, I think it was. Outside of that, had good health on his side, so that's good to see. PFF graded him at a 78, which is a good grade in 2019. Allowed just 4 sacks last season. That's pretty good. Tennessee, surprisingly, did not pick up Conklin's 5th-year option, which is pretty eye-opening. I think that happened last year. I think they had to decide on it last year, but I think if they decided on it this year, they probably would have kept him, but they probably did not expect him to have as good as a year as he did. So now he's probably going to be a free agent, or they could franchise tag him, obviously. So I think, there's a lot of Giants fans, as I said, out there that want this guy, and I put on Twitter the other day, I'm not really a fan of that, and I can't really argue too much because Conklin's a good player and all, but in my personal opinion, the Giants have too many holes on defense to be like, yeah, let's go throw $15 million at Jack Conklin. That's just not a good idea in my opinion. I mean, Conklin had a really good rookie year. I think he had an average year in 2017. Of course, 2018 played half the year, had an injury-riddled season, and 2019 was really good. So he had 2 really good years, 1 injury-riddled season, and 1 kind of down year. So look, I mean, he'd be fine. He'd be an upgrade, obviously, from what we have right now, an upgrade from Mike Remmers and Nick Gates and whatnot, but they just have too many holes on defense. Like, if the Giants had a defense that was set up and they basically had all their, defensive spots filled up, then I'd be like, yeah, let's go ahead and get Jack Conklin. Why not? If you had the cap space for him, go ahead and get him. But right now, there's just too many needs on defense, in my opinion. I'd rather spend a lot of the offseason money and fix the defense. I mean, there are options at right tackle, whether it's in-house or through the draft, and they could address that at a much cheaper price, obviously. You could even bring back Mike Remmers on a short contract. We'll get to him later. Nate Solder is obviously not a cheap option, but he's here already, so you can put him at right tackle. You can draft a guy at number 4 overall, which is not that cheap of an option, but he would be like half the price of a Jack Conklin probably. So you have that, and it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it wouldn't piss me off if they signed him, but if they sign him and then don't put enough attention to the defense and the defense sucks again in 2020, it would annoy me a lot. So hopefully they get it right. I personally don't expect them to sign Conklin, but we'll see. I mean, they missed out on him in 2016's draft, and maybe they want him once again. Maybe John Mara loves this guy. I have no idea, but we'll see. I mean, maybe the Giants go after him. I just don't see it happening. I think there's too many holes on defense right now. He'd be arguably their best offensive lineman. I think Kevin Zeitler's better, but still definitely their best tackle for sure. And, you look at your tackles, if they sign Conklin, I think Solder and Conklin would probably take up over $30 million, probably over that, over $30 million, because if it's 19 plus 15 a year, it's definitely over $30 million in cap space for 1 year just for your two tackles. I understand tackles is a very important position, but for guys like Conklin and Solder, they aren't top of the line talents at that position. Like if you're paying the best left and right tackle in the league, then that's fine. But these guys aren't the best in the league. I mean, Conklin's probably around top 10 best right tackle in the league, but Nate Solder's definitely not even like top 20 at this point in his position. So that would annoy me, and I just hope they get the defense right. That's really all I care about. I mean, I think the offense is fine. They have enough guys. I think they can make the offensive line work. I mean, this is, of course, if they pick an offensive lineman in the first round, which is what I want and what I'm hoping for. So if they draft Isaiah Simmons, then yeah, maybe you go ahead and get Jack Conklin just to solidify that line even more. But it once again does not solve the most important spot on your line, which in fact is left tackle. So this next option would not get anybody excited, but once again, if they put most of their resources to the defense and need to save money somewhere and bring back a cheap right tackle, then why not just re-sign Mike Remmers? I mean, Mike Remmers last year I think made around $3 million for 1 year. I think he's 31 years old next season. He would not demand too much money. If you ask me, I think he would not ask for too much money. Probably under $5 million if I had to ask. Probably around what he got last year, which is not a lot at all. So if you spend a lot of money, like let's hypothetically say the Giants get Corey Littleton and Byron Jones or Yannick Ngakoue, guys like that, a couple of those guys, maybe two of them, then you kind of have to just go a little short spending at the right tackle position. And obviously Mike Remmers is a guy who last year was here, had a good season for the most part, only missed 2 games, was coming off the back injury, so we were concerned about his durability and whatnot. And PFF rated him as 64.3, which is average. I think that's about right. And, I said last year had that one bad game against Arizona, but outside of that, it was really not a complaint for me personally. I mean, maybe you guys have a different opinion about him, but he was definitely not a liability last year. That's the one thing. I mean, Nate Solder at some points was definitely a liability. And as I said, outside of that one game, I think Mike Remmers had a really solid 2019 season. So if the Giants are in the event that they want to save money and just spend a lot on the defense, which I'm totally fine with, that's kind of what I want to happen, then Mike Remmers could be the guy. So I don't really know if Mike Remmers will make it through a whole season once again. He might have another injury flare-up, and this time it might be worse. He's now, on the north side of 30, so it is what it is. But still, a cheap option. He's, a guy who's been around for a while, has played for a lot of different teams, which is probably not a good thing, but he was here last year, familiar with, I don't want to say the system, but, the system's going to change, familiar with the team and the surroundings, same teammates and whatnot. So I think Remmers would be a pretty decent option. It would not annoy me one bit if he was brought back. You have Remmers there, you have Nick Gates backing him up, and then, of course, Big George is even behind him. So you have guys there. If, Mike Remmers went down next year, then you have Nick Gates behind them who could fill in for that spot. So I don't want to see it Nate Solder and Mike Remmers. If it's like Andrew Thomas and Mike Remmers, I can make that work. But then once again, you have to have Nate Solder, so that whole plan goes out the window. So yeah, really in this case, I guess Nate Solder would have to be the left tackle, which would suck. I mean, I don't want that to happen. But honestly, guys, I do think Nate Solder has somewhat of a bounce back here next year. He can't be that bad. Like, Nate Solder was never, there's no TH in never, Mike. But no, he was never a top flight left tackle, not one of the best in the league, but he was always average. And Nate Solder last year was just below average and honestly pretty bad. So I don't think he'll be there. I think it kind of regresses more towards the middle, or progresses towards the middle this year, and I think he'll be fine. So I mean, I don't expect him to be a liability for 2 years in a row. I'm once again hoping that he played injured, and hopefully he's a lot better next year. And if they have Mike Remmers on the other side, it's definitely not something I'd be thrilled about, but I could live with it. And lastly, we have some in-house options, guys that are under contract for next year. One of them being Nick Gates, who had a good 2019 season, and George Ajay, I think it is, who really didn't see the field at all last year. Didn't even play in the regular season. I don't even think he played in the preseason, honestly. I think he got injured in the training camp and had a concussion that lingered for a lot longer than we expected and really never saw the field. So I don't think he was concussed for the entire season. I think the Giants just played it safe and said, yeah, we'll see you next year. You're only 22 years old anyway. So, we'll see what he brings next year to the table. But for Nick Gates, he's on a very cheap contract, making under $1 million. He was an undrafted free agent in the 2018 class, started 3 games last year in 2019, and was pretty good. I mean, I didn't look up his PFF grade, but from my eyes, he was pretty good. I mean, he wasn't as good as Giants fans make him out to be. He did have some struggles last year, couldn't handle the bull rushes sometimes, but for the most part, he was, better than what we've seen at the left tackle position from Solder and even sometimes from Mike Remmers. So I think Nick Gates was fine, definitely held his own. I wouldn't want him to be the starter for 16 games, but it is a possibility, I guess. I mean, we'll see. And George Asafo-Ajay, I mean, this guy's 23 years old next year, didn't play any games last year with the concussion, a 7th-round pick in the 2019 draft. Has the potential to be good, but I'm not counting on it. I mean, counting on a guy in the 7th round to come back who didn't play at all last year and be a starting right tackle would just be kind of dumb. It really would. So I think the guy has the tools to be good. I mean, when I saw on tape last year, he seemed like he had some pretty good traits and was definitely good at run blocking. I don't remember his pass blocking too well. He might have had some blunders in there, but for the most part, I think he was pretty solid. So people talk about he went in practice against Josh Allen in Jacksonville. So that's definitely encouraging. So I don't expect much from him, but if he comes in next year and plays well in the preseason, which is definitely a possibility, then maybe you have yourself 2 really good backup right tackles and you'll be in a good spot. So I wouldn't count on either of those guys, Nick Gates or Asafo-Ajay, to start next year, but if they're on the bench and they're playing well, it can only help and it'll be a good problem to have. And I feel like some people are already writing off Asafo-Ajay, who hasn't really played a game yet, which isn't fair. So first, let's see what he does in the preseason. Maybe he gets cut next year, I don't know, but maybe he comes in and plays really well, so we'll see. I'm sure he'll get a chance as long as he stays healthy, and that's definitely the main thing. But if he's healthy next year and plays in the preseason and plays to a high level, he'll probably make the team. I mean, I don't know if they'll have 2 backup right tackles or whatnot, but I think Nick Gates can play guard as well, so maybe they can have Nick Gates and Asafo-Ajay to play the tackle position as a backup, and then Nick Gates to play guard or tackle as a backup and add some versatility. So we'll see what they do. I mean, the Giants, I think last year, I don't know if they had 7 tackles or 8. I think it was 7 for a little bit, but I think at one point they had 7 tackles. They might have had 8 at one point as well. So we'll see what they do with the roster next year. It's a different coach anyway, so who cares what they did last year. So yeah, they have guys that could be good backups, but I wouldn't count on either of these guys to be starters. So there's also some other options in the draft, obviously. I didn't talk about like Tristan Wirfs. I didn't talk about Josh Jones from Houston. I didn't talk about Mekhi Becton from Louisville, who some Giants fans love for some reason. Honestly, I don't know if I'm gonna make a video about Becton, but I'm not too sold on him. I mean, there's things obviously that he has that you can't teach. I mean, you can't teach being 6'8" and whatever he is. I mean, just crazy huge, but there's some things in his tape that I'm a bit concerned about, so if you want me to make a video about him in the future, I will do so. I probably will at some point. We have a lot of time before the draft, so if you want me to make a Mekhi Becton video, I will do that, but let me know. But, there's problems with everybody. No prospect is perfect, really, unless you're like Saquon Barkley, but like even Joe Burrow, I think, is close to perfect, honestly. But, every prospect has their flaws, and, it is what it is. So we'll see what Gettleman does. I'll admit, he's a good drafter. I don't really know what else he does that's good, but he's a good drafter, so he has that to his to his repertoire, which is good, and we'll see what he does. So, honestly, there's a lot of moves here that could be made. Brian Bulaga from the Packers is a free agent. I think he'll come back to the Packers. I think he's 31 years old as well, so maybe a short deal with the Packers. I'd be surprised if he left, but of course, money talks, so we'll see what happens. So that's all I got to say. I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know who you think should play right tackle next year, some ideas I didn't talk about and whatnot, some of your favorite draft prospects at right tackle as well, and I'll talk to you guys next time.